Here's an interesting case that came from New Jersey. The date of this bird strike is April 29th. It was an American Airlines, and it has some pretty interesting feathers. We'll take this one out and show you how we go through the process. A lot of people say, how can the Smithsonian be involved in aviation safety? Well, it's because we have this wonderful collection here. We have microscopic slides of feathers of birds. We have tissue samples for DNA analysis of birds. And most importantly, we have a large collection of museum specimens. A bird strike occurs when a bird collides with an aircraft, and as you can imagine, there's not a whole lot left of the bird. This is what comes off of the aircraft, what's left of a bird after a bird strike if there are no feathers or tissue or anything. And actually what's inside of here is what we call bird snarge. And this is just bird ick that's wiped off of the aircraft. It could be blood or tissue. So the first thing we'll do in this case is look at these feathers. So because the field ID was a goose, the first thing I'm going to do is check to see if it's a goose. So I'll go over and get a specimen of a Canada goose out of our collection and try to match this up. And right away I can see that the color is very different. The Canada goose doesn't have these nice white spots at the tip. So we'll go and check a common loon. So it just so happens that we also have specimens of loons. And if you'll notice on this specimen, as opposed to the goose, there actually are some black feathers with white spots on the wing. These feathers match exactly with the common loon. The other thing that we can do to verify this identification is look at the microscopic characters of the feather. Each group of birds has a special suite of microscopic characters that sort of tells us which group of birds it is. So ducks have a different microscopic structure from pigeons, and pigeons are different from perching birds. We could also take this to the DNA lab because we have this sample of snarge, and that will help, in this case, verify our identification. We don't always get birds in bird strikes. Sometimes we actually have mammals, and we can get deer, we can get rabbits. Bats often occur in bird strikes. In a case that we had recently, we actually got a DNA match to a deer, but the pilot told us that the aircraft was flying at 1,500 feet, and we know that there are no reindeer that fly, so we had to go back to the sample and do another microscopic analysis. Sure enough, in that sample we did find a tiny feather barb from a black vulture. So the vulture was probably feeding on the carcass of the deer before it took off and hit the aircraft. So we have a lot of birds out there now flying around that are large-bodied birds. I think there are somewhere around 14 species of birds in North America that weigh more than 8 pounds. Of those 14 species, 13 have experienced significant population increases in the last 35 years. In the case of Flight 1549 that went into the Hudson, we actually received over 100 samples, somewhere around 100 samples, I think, in total. We made microslides from all of the samples. We did DNA analysis from all of the samples. So at this point in the investigation, so far we have identified Canada geese in both engines. You need to know what the species is that you're trying to manage or you're trying to deal with. And so getting the bird identification is the very first primary step in the whole program of bird avoidance. Once they have the data, and we give the data to the military and to the FAA, they have teams of people who really work together to try to prevent this from happening. We provide the ID, that information then goes on to other agencies who do more of the management issues, the design of the aircraft, and really try to create models that will prevent birds and aircraft from colliding.